Howdy folks, Tom Barbalet here. I'm recording this for Tim Harrison of the ModelRailCast Show just to explain some easy steps to RSS feed editing for podcasts. So what I have here is a simple XML file, which is the simplest file, or well, it's got a lot of text in it, but it's the easiest to understand way of connecting audio files, podcast files, with the descriptions to iTunes. And I've given just the simplest one here with just a single episode just to illustrate what is required. You can use an existing RSS validator to validate your RSS files. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about FTP because you have to FTP this to a site. What I'm going to do is just go through what it needs to contain and the format accordingly. I'm editing this in a code editor on the Mac Xcode, but you can use any kind of text editor. So these things are just niceties that you set up once. I should point out, so this RSS example is available from barbalet.com / I think what is it, simple.xml. So you can actually download this file and do your own modifications accordingly. So this is the one that I do the initial setup. It's got the title of the podcast, the URL, US English, copyright information, the subtitle, which is the title under Model Rail Radio, author, summary, description. Some of these things you have to duplicate because some are used by iTunes and some are used by other RSS readers. An image for the podcast, the category that are available. You can get these through iTunes as a document that explains that. But the most important part for each podcast is the item selection. And you've got to remember with RSS or XML in particular that you should have corresponding / title for equivalent / of no / title at the top. It's a bit like HTML that way. So you just need to make sure in most of these cases, so for example, this channel information, if I'm correct, maybe my feed is bad here. Does that just open and not close? Oh no, it closes down here. Okay. So for every open, there should be a corresponding close. For stuff that's inline, so for example here, there's an equivalent close, owner, there's equivalent start and close, so you can just go through all of them. But I would recommend just taking this file and doing the modifications as you see fit. Now for each new podcast, what I typically do is I have an additional text file that I write as I'm editing the podcast, which is just the show notes, and I paste it in here. The description is for a generic RSS feed reader. People use that. And the iTunes subtitle and summary, I think these could be different, but it just works for me every time. But you need to make sure you have a title, obviously, so let's create a new title here. Title, I always put the date in just for simplicity. I think there's a standard through iTunes now where if you have the show name, like here it'd be Model Rail Radio, but whatever, and then you have some format where you say like, I don't know, number 3, : iTunes and at least the podcast downloader for iOS scraps that and it just says number 3 and then the title. The author, where your name should go here, and then the description, and you can put any text in here. You should be mindful that there are certain characters that aren't really liked through this, but if you just got standard text, it's fine. Some of the stuff changes by Apple's discretion, but you can just put what you want here on either side of the description. And then what I do is I just paste it in 3 places, which is kind of easy. Then the next part, which is where it gets more interesting, is you probably should validate that there's actually an audio file here. What I do through the Mac is that I get info on the file, and that'll give me the length as well. Usually the length through that is comma delimited, so I just make sure that I remove the commas, so it's actually a number. You need to put some date in here, and then this is the length of the file in hours, minutes, seconds. If it's shorter, you can just do minutes, seconds. I don't think there's a format for days, so if you're recording more than 24 hours, and some of us have tried, you do it in the hours. And then keywords, which I think are useful in searches, so if you have specific terms that you want to put in there, you put in the keywords, and then what you're doing here is just identifying the item. So each new podcast that you produce, each new episode, you just create another one and fill out the details, save it, and then upload it via FTP. This is the system I use for all my podcasts. It's easy from my perspective. I then typically, now unfortunately Safari for the Mac doesn't offer this, but I think Google Chrome has an RSS reader, so I always open up the RSS feed once I've uploaded it to the site in Google Chrome, and then I check just the audio link specifically, and if I have an iOS device nearby or some podcatching device, iTunes, what have you, I then do a double check and just check to see it downloads and everything works. But this is the way that I do podcasts. It's very simple. No headaches. You've got to just minimize the headaches because you're going to get that probably through audio editing and other things, dealing with troublesome guests. So yeah, just keep things simple on the RSS feed uploading way. And I can talk about other things if people have questions. If you want to get in contact, tom@modelrailt.com. But that's been my little example associated with RSS feed editing. It need not be difficult. So, I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you for tuning in, and good afternoon.